Julie here with Sirius, Taurus, Moon, Jupiter, our Mars day. Moon is 29 degrees. Sagittarius, tropically. Ascendant, 5 degrees. Sag. Jupiter, 19 degrees. Cancer, Moon, ruling Jupiter. And Jupiter in the 8th house, Moon in the 1st. Midheaven ruled by Mercury, which squares Pluto. The royal degree 5. Our leaders destined to have this sense of isolation. I can only speak from my experience on the journey of the Sun Dasha. Which I have just begun, it is true. And I address the fact that when we talk about regimes, abolishing occultistic rape is a prerequisite to anything that is regime. Deal with the devil is invalid because it's invalid NDA if there is no consent. And in rape, there cannot be consent. It's occultistic rape conversion, which only converts to Oppenheimer. Of course, in such settings, anything that would become close to leadership would be very lonely, even within itself, even when it's not alone, even within itself. My experience. Now, this is also why abolishing occultistic rape and ritual abuse is prerequisite for any job, which I addressed previous episode. In a world that prerequisite exists, which is the very basis, I talked about the fact that we had Gen Z, the utmost profoundly productive, optimistic, realistic, competent, and driven generation brought to street gangs and human sacrifice not because they are hooligans, but because entire system that, by the way, was practicing the same practices prevented them from giving their contribution. Now, in a world where that very basis is there, that people are not occultistically raped as inauguration, and of course they have to be perpetrators as well. In such a world, leadership is no more solitary than the sense of self. And what do I mean by that? If the sun exalts in Eris, Eris is the I am. Opposite to the I am is diplomatic relations, which is Libra. It takes a sense of self to have diplomatic relations that I addressed in the previous episode and the previous episode. And the last 3 years. Definitely the last year with Jupiter turned the retrograde on Procyon. You know, we saw, I think, very evidently how when the intelligence is trained by occultistic rape, infiltrated by the Epstein dossiers, it's very difficult to protect any citizen from John or Mary to citizen number one. And her man or his missy. And this is the point. This is, by the way, these are my Eurekas going from perfection year 6 to perfection year 7. No, leaders are not all the time alone in a world, and basically I'm saying that to me. Now, I have to understand, why am I saying that? Because I have Ketu in the 10th house. Ketu in the 10th house is usually retired by 48. I'm 42. And Rahu is, in 2030, it would be Rahu Ketu reversal for me. When we talk about leadership, we talk about the sun qualities, which is every single person is a leader. Okay, leaders are people, people are leaders. In a world where there is occultistic rape, of course people are lonely even when they are in bed making supposedly passionate love with misplaced arousal and trauma bond. It's not evil. It is evil not to abolish that. In such a world, there is no father that fathers. What was Gen Z complaining about? That they're saying their parents don't parent, and everybody was asking them to adult. And what is the fame? What are the most prevalent millennial TikToks or shorts? The music in the Y2K. British Fab turning into Y2K. Millennials pretending they're still going to party like in high school. Nothing about children. Leaders are all the time alone. Millennials had to lead with their Pluto Scorpios in a world that Epstein's. um, why did I refuse to have a harem? It's not relaxed arousal. It is not power with. Shout out to Annika Lucas. It's already rock for me. um, but the origin of that is, I would need to use AI here, the power with paradigm. It's actually to do with matriarchal perceptions. Yeah, but I'm talking about the thinkers. Okay, it doesn't give me the origin. I would need a deeper look into the origins. It's kind of like I was thinking about it, not knowing that somebody previously coined that term I think it was around 2018, 2019. And but actually it's I'm not the first person to coin that term, and it's way before. It was actually, I think, a man philosopher or man sociologist that talked about power with. Now, when we don't have ritual abuse, definitely not as inauguration, then whatever we come to lead in our life, we are entering relations as, if I talk about the seventh house as a one-on-one house, as two leaders. And let me tell you something, no relationship can work otherwise. I was talking about Lilith is your partner, which means the woman that would not be subjugated is the easiest woman to actually negotiate with. Okay? And vice versa, of course, honoring the feminine creates emergence of a masculine that is sovereign. A sovereign, a free person is not oppress another. So a sovereign man has power with rather than the illusion of power over. Um, this type of relations are secure attachment, and when it comes to more intimate things, it's of course relaxed arousals, which negates the trafficking based or occultistic rape based diplomacy, which is at the ground core concept of male or female harems. But it's true. Um, Again, people can be monogamous, they can be non-monogamous, but polygamy or the equivalent, or a female harem or a woman having a harem, is stemming from now. On another topic, what's it like to enter a seventh house perfected year where Rahu is actually closer to the natal first? Where Ketu is in the seventh. Because Ketu is usually what we dematerialize. In that case, Mercury is in Taurus, so it's a point of talus between Ketu and Rahu. And squaring Pluto, this point of talus is in a growth crisis. We need to dematerialize power over, along with anything in the seventh. And here I say, when Uranus ingressed to Taurus, or right before that, and when Chiron ingressed to Taurus, I said, I was at a juncture in my life, I said, something has to dematerialize. It doesn't have to be a person, but this certain dynamic has to dematerialize. And yet to materialize, what we materialize here is, here's with Rahu being in the first, is the self and sense of self. What if the ruler is in the fifth house? Now for me, that's the inner child, that's for sure. Last time I tended to my inner child, Spirit of Matter came up in my YouTube Spirit of Matter channel, where I did some interviews. It had a Netflix potential, but we had to drop a petering first. From here to there, arguing about water in Davos. Today I was walking and thinking, water, all these waters in Libra, but water is also the agape love, the non-erotic love. Mercury being in Venus sign is definitely not, how should I say that? Venus is a union sign. It's a relational sign. Jupiter being in the sign of the moon, but then the moon applying to a pose from Capricorn. Um, so normally if I would think about entering a seventh year perfection with Ketu in the seventh, is meaning we are dematerializing relational patterns on a one-to-one. And it can be any type of one-to-one. It's not the 8th house one-to-one. Okay, it's not the, let's say, it's not the shared resources one-to-one. It's more the one-to-one, person-to-person relations. And then the ruler, Mercury squaring Pluto, what we are dematerializing is those power struggles, which means that we are dematerializing power over. We're not yet materializing power with, unfortunately. Maybe later in the year, I don't know. But first, what is needed is to dematerialize power over. It's the prerequisite for any relation to be. Pluto in Aquarius, Saturn in Aries is exactly that statement. A relation consists between two sovereigns. Now, for people that know a little bit of the behind the scenes when we think about leadership and diplomatic relations, it's a and yet it's a tautology. I talked about it in the context of peace. This Mercury squaring Pluto is definitely of power relations, which means whatever Pluto means. It means politics, it means economy, it means power of astrology, it means power of occult, it means scientific power. Technological. And it means that there is a crisis of mutual communication and this types of power. And it's a year of dematerializing any one-to-one relations dynamic that is not aligning with power with. Now, it's a challenging aspect, but it gives us the challenge in a very accurate way. Because entering a seventh house perfection with the ruler, with Rahu in the first, meaning Ketu in the seventh, means that definitely we are dematerializing some patterns in one-to-one relations. With those patterns, they can be people, relations, but the core issue is it doesn't have to be people, it's definitely patterns of relations. Whichever people hold to the old patterns of relations, they're dematerialized together with any people that, and here it's through crisis, transform and change. For example, if I was given a reading and that was, let's say, a married couple that's been married for several years, I'd say this is a year when you folks are going to be dematerializing any residues of power over that you may have had acquired or that your society was dictating, and so you too probably would be active in a crisis of, for example, if they want to ban divorce, you too would probably be making sure that you are able to divorce so that you're able to sustain a power with dynamic in relations. Okay, I would not say, hey, you folks are going to divorce in a time where they try to ban divorce, because it's not necessarily true. It's the essence of the pattern. Okay, and I'm reminded of when I made a joke of Iranian propaganda. And I said they were trying to appeal to the people. And I said something along the lines as it's obvious that they're not so connected to the people because all these things they talk about are true, but we don't trust them to be better. Now, for example, the woman that would not be subjugated. They would need to compete with the best of the Declaration of Independence and the best of practices and top that by billion to appeal to the people. But by the way, if somehow they do, then the local regime will have to compete with that. And if they try to haggle human rights, sense of self is not negotiable. Abolishing occultistic rape is not negotiable. One cannot talk of treason when there is rape or when there is trafficking. And in that case, better per se in conjunct spica. Practice, okay? Practice. Which means it's not, in linguistic, there is prescribed language, and then there is the language that people speak. Beta per se is praxis. If there is occultistic rape, dead bodies upon dead bodies upon dead, and Chiron is on its way. It ingresses to Taurus this year, and then it's going to do the thing and progress to Beta per se and drop the stocks. The subprime is already doing a decree sign. Don't buy houses in mortgage relying on the low subprime. I cannot stress that enough. This is not a financial advice. It's knowledge from the experience of billions in 2008. And look, we had another Epstein dossiers. So we had the first chapter, and then we had the subprime crisis, and then we had the 30 million whatnot names of Epstein list, and then we have another subprime going low, low, low. Now what happens when the subprime going low? When the breadwinner doesn't win bread. In the Second World War, women had to run their businesses. And they couldn't appeal to the male sector because they were not buying power. That's how women eventually got the right to vote. The suffragists were sacrificed and ritually raped in prisons, in concentration camps. It's the practice of women that, like the men, had no breadwinning power because either they were dead at war, wounded, or there was financial crisis. And so women had to be the main breadwinner, and they couldn't appeal to the male sector because they had no buying force. Practically, okay, but the Me Too wasn't back then. The Me Too was the suffragists that were sacrificed in death camps. The praxis was that whatever woman, whether she had children or not, she had to make her money because the man couldn't. And if he couldn't make money, he also could not pay. And so even the women that said that the Me Too went too far could not apply to the male sector when they had to be the main breadwinner. Now, of course, the women that were ahead of their time before the Me Too and this is where Rahu is in the first house, which is the house of the self. And Jupiter being exalted in Cancer, self-nourishment. For me, it's the fifth house, so it's inner child. But and here we also want to think back to when Jupiter was in Pisces. What happened when Saturn was here? Because we're not having a second chapter of what happened when Saturn was here. What we are having is, look at Lilith. Lilith is your partner. There are a lot of people that had a chance with that Lilith. Doesn't work with power over. It's Lilith. You know, if we look at how to, let's say if somebody, Nikola Stojanovic had a teaching about Venus. And he says if you're attracted to somebody, if he's man, look to his Venus. And you see Venus here, Venus there. If you're attracted to a woman, look to Jupiter. By the way, take into account that if she has like a bad Jupiter, she's probably wearing a talisman or something. She's not going to compromise for a bad Jupiter. Let's just put it that way. So, look at Lilith. Seriously, where is Lilith in this woman's chart? Where is the woman that would not be subjugated? And same with the man or gender non-conforming. Right now we have a Lilith in Sag. Philosophy, spirituality, belief. But also marital relations. Jupiter is the husband. The woman, very, very classical, the woman that would not be subjugated even in paradise. Because paradise is not paradise if a woman is to be subjugated. And birthing is not punishment. It's supposed to be orgasmic experience. Which in a society that does not occultistically rape, it's way closer, way more chances for it to be a way better experience. And people are saying, no, 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 no. Look to the industry. It's not the fault of the woman. And that is exactly the point. That in a society that believes that birth is punishment in the scriptures, these are occultistic practices that affect since infanthood. We really don't know the world without rape. There are many diseases that we wouldn't have at all in the world. And even if, let's say, there would be challenging birthing experience or whatnot, would not be anywhere near like what it is like today to deal with those issues. Um, more things that I can say. For a man chart, Lilith is as the woman that would not be subjugated, is where he would meet that woman and he would need to come to understanding that that woman would not be subjugated, and if he has difficulty to be attracted to a woman that would not be subjugated, that's for him to sort. Okay, the kind of like he's attracted, but it raises complexes. Amazing. Those complexes are golden. They are the things. They are his growth if he turns within to sort it within. Um, woman to woman or woman to man, again. Gender not conforming, again. That would be. It also represents them where they are where they are the woman that would not be subjugated. And I said, but the gender definition. Wait a second. When they are the woman that would not be subjugated. Do they have a dishonoring of the feminine? No, we challenge all the cisgender woman standing in front of you. What does it bring? Here is the gold. Oh, the Epstein code that does force gender changes. Exactly. Thanks, Anya Wick. It's one of the brave people that talked about it, other than people that talked about it in the context of targeted individuals. Sovereignty, 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 sovereignty. Anything that dishonors that has to go. Even parenting is supposed to be nourishing and supportive of sovereignty. Parenting is not to make decisions for somebody else. Is inspiration. Definitely not to rape the children. Um, Again, we are dealing with a world where people are recovering from ritual abuse, which means what? That a child was susceptible to rape and mind control. Now, Ketu in the 7th. Mercury being a point of Talis actually right now. Venus in Gemini. More Rao in the first for people that have 7th house perfection years. Materializing the self, materializing the sense of self. What's more, people are fated to focus on themselves. If it was a reading to people that are married for a long time, the partner that has Rao in the first house is now focusing on themselves. Things that they may discover with Jupiter in the sign of the moon, where they stand relationally, where they actually stand relationally. For example, I'm tending to my inner child. It means I cannot be the parentified child. It means I'm tending to my non-erotic self. Any venturing into the erotic has to honor the erotic and non-erotic self, power with, not power over, and so on and so forth. But first, I need to have my sense of self to even be able to participate. For other people, it may be different relational issues. For example, let's say if a person has like a moon Rahu or Jupiter to their moon, I don't know. It could either mean that they're tending to their inner child before they can become a parent, which is important. You understand that you don't need to read minds to understand that I just realized that Jupiter was crossing my moon. It's separating from my moon, but I'm tending to my inner infant and to the fact that infants are targeted by I'm like, Rahu is not in the 5th, it's not an 8th house perfection year. Definitely not planning on being a single parent. Nor do I see myself able to grow children at this point in my life. um, when the broadcast, when the astrologer is the last to know. um, yeah. And where is that? What degree? And what degree is that Jupiter? On the ascendant of the 1800 Netherlands chart. Netherlands, you have to get rid of the femicide practices because it's not. No, seriously. Okay, children that will be born this year or conceived. They will have Pluto in Aquarius, Neptune in Aries, Uranus in Gemini, Uranus in Gemini. um, Theoclides. I don't believe I remember the name. Um, Neptune in Aries, Saturn in Aries, Chiron Eris. Um, no, because I was just talking about, yeah, maybe if the Jupiter is with the ruling Rahu in, in the fifth house. um, Pluto Aquarius. Whoa, this is interesting. Uranus Gemini, Neptune Aries, Pluto, Chiron Aries. Chiron Aries, not yet, not squaring yet Pluto, not squaring Pluto anymore, not yet sextiling. Oh, Chiron Taurus, um, Aries. Aries at the end of Aries, it means that Aries will be in Taurus as they grow. They will be the children of the ingress of an ingress of a century. Um, Lilith will be applying to trine Chiron and Eris. This will be children with Lilith in harmonious aspect to Eris for most of the, at least that calms me down. This will be Lilithesque. um, or not, I don't know. But definitely Lilith in agreement. What does Lilith in agreement to Aries looks like? Um, the woman that would not be subjugated agrees with Eris, which is the woman could cause a Trojan war for the sake of not being subjugated. People are saying, "Oh, this is you." No, it's not. I have Moon square Aries. I have Jupiter square Aries. My Aries is in a semi-sextile with my Black Moon Lilith is in a semi-sextile with Aries, a minor aspect. And my Uranus is in a semi-sextile with Jupiter. My Uranus trines Lilith, trines Aries, and and my true Lilith is a point of Taurus between my Rao and Ketu. So this year I met, I think, at least one chart, well, not this year, but at least one chart that had the same true Lilith and Black Moon Lilith as mine. Um, it had an Aries Lilith, so it was next to my Lilith. If people are like, "Oh, surely this is you," that could have accentuated that. Although people are like, "No, no, that's before that." Yes, it's true because I have Lilith in my first house and in my and true Lilith in my second. So and my second in Aries, which is the I am. So like I said, honoring the feminine. If it, yeah, I'm not planning on having children. You know, if you're still having difficult time digesting this version of Lilith, don't push me to get babied. Get I gonna be Lilithran, Eris. And you better bet you probably they probably gonna have some other Aries and Lilith aspects to them. In Iceland, I remind you that the witch hunt was killing 90% men, warlocks. I kind of think of what could be a child born into like me with even more Lilith and Aries agreeing with one another. An elf, I don't know. So, people wanting me to have kids should watch what they wish for, unless they're like really into, but then they would not be pressuring anybody. Um, Uranus Sedna. Uranus Sedna in Gemini. These kids could explode world refineries. Just because, no. I don't know. Like you're in a Gemini civil war clock. Um, and um, Neptune Aries. Neptune Aries curates food. It kind of agrees with you. Uranus said now with the remineralization factor. Oh my God! It did become solid. Or is no? It was not. No, it was. I made it an attempt in a previous episode, and I did not use any type of like beeswax because it's supposed to be. Um, so it's still usable, but I think better as a mouthwash. I would have to put way more cocoa butter in it. And I'm kind of surprised because I put enough like coconut oil, which was supposed to be at this temperature pretty solid, but it isn't. Very surprising. Perhaps something, perhaps the baking soda changed something. I don't know. Um, anyway, but it very usable. It's usable for both, but I'm probably gonna use it for mouthwash more. Um, well, mouthwash. Uranus, Gemini, and language. Um, so, curating of the food, curating of the minerals. The teeth of the children will not need to will not rot because their parents ate unripe fruits. Um, Basically, if the parents don't eat unripe fruit, namely don't rape children, then the teeth of the children will be healthy. Mama standing to the teeth to the teeth of the child. um, Pluto Aquarius. What can I say? Pluto Aquarius Saturn Aries. People will be their own astrologer. People will be their own scientist. People will be their own sovereign regime. I was looking at sovereign AI. So with these children, they're probably gonna develop sovereign technology in support of sovereignty, infrastructure, decentralized regime to the level of the individual.